Welcome back to the Song Tripping channel. I'm Jim and I'm joined by my friend Ken Pobo. Ken, welcome back.
Hi, nice to be back.
We are here to discuss an album. I want to start doing more album reviews on the YouTube channel. And I picked an album that came up in our last podcast when we did the theme of growing older. And it's a song from the Lovin Spoonful that came off an album, Everything Playing. I'm going to show it to everybody on album cam here. This was the copy that I bought at a record store in a shopping mall in Lancaster way too many years ago. And it was a cutout. You can see, can you see the little hole here? That's the cutout bins. I think I probably got it for $1, but it was shrink, right? Here's the back cover. And I didn't really know anything about the Lovin Spoonful when I got this album, but I had heard Summer in the City on the radio, like oldies radio, but I just took a chance on this album. I think I was at that point in my listening career when I was ready to start branching out and looking for new avenues to explore. And this was one of them. I didn't know anything about the band. So we're coming from two different perspectives. Ken, you probably were around when this came out in January of 1968. Was it on your radar?
Not really. I was, 14?
Okay.
Not even. I was 13 when this came out. And if you're 13, you probably don't have much money, which I didn't. Albums, even if they were only like, $3.99 or something back in the old days, that was usually pretty much out of my league unless I had birthday or Christmas money. And so I did not get this at the time. I don't remember exactly when and where I got it. I would imagine it was kind of like you. I got it on the cheap in a cutout situation.
A little bit after the fact then.
Oh, yeah. I didn't buy any Spoonful albums when they were actually out.
But you knew the band.
Oh, God, yes. If you were listening to radio from late 65 into early 68, you knew the band. They were very big.
So this album was the last album that John Sebastian participated in. He was the leader of the group and wrote most of the material, and I think most of the big hits he either wrote or co-wrote, correct?
Oh, yes.
And this album was a flop. Like, what was the chart history? Do you know it?
I think I may have the number wrong, but I think it made like number 118 for like 6 weeks or something like that. But when you think about albums that even, little more than a year before were in the national top 15, that commercially was quite a downturn. The singles weren't doing as well either. I mean, you could kind of see that their heyday had kind of come and gone. I don't think it had come and gone artistically, but in terms of commercial success.
And here on the inner sleeve, we've got the original lineup. And who is this guy? Because he's not in the band by this point.
Isn't that Zali?
Yeah, that is Zal Yanofsky.
Yeah.
And the story of why he's no longer in the group is interesting. I think before we start talking about the album, he was the victim of a drug bust in San Francisco, arrested for possession of marijuana in May of 1967. And the police leaned on him to rat out his supplier. And Zal was a Canadian, and he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to come back into the US. So he dimed out the supplier. And then there was this huge public backlash in the counterculture scene. And somebody took out a full-page ad in the LA Free Press urging people not to buy Lovin Spoonful records or attend their concerts. And the girls were not to ball them. This was a quote.
Hear that, girls?
So an early example of cancel culture. Yeah, that was kind of a shame because he was an important member of the group.
Well, a shame in a whole lot of ways. And I, well, look what happened. I mean, we lost a beautiful group.
Right. And he was replaced by Jerry Yester. And here's a label. When I first opened this album, I was very taken with the label. I had not had a Kama Sutra record until this point. It really jumped out at me. I thought, oh, this is very 60s. I love it. Right. And side one is She's Still a Mystery, Priscilla Millionaire, Boredom, 6 O'Clock, and Forever. What were the singles off of side one? Do you remember? 6 O'Clock.
Well, 6 O'Clock was in like May and June of 1967. That was a hit. It made top 20 nationwide. Again, not top 10, but top 20. That was the one single by the Lovin Spoonful I bought when I was a kid. And then the other one on that side that was a single was October 67, She's Still a Mystery.
So let me share some notes I have as I was re-listening to this. To be honest, I had not listened to this album all the way through in maybe 30 years. I mean, it's been a while, right?
Well,
it was my first Lovin
Spoonful. 30 years, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other records, but I always kept it around. That this is my original copy, and I'll just share like some memories of it, but also some contemporary reactions to it. So we start with She's Still a Mystery, and that sounds almost to me like Baroque pop.
That was the word I was going to use.
It's very orchestrated. It's got this nice strong chorus. It's a good John Sebastian song. It's kind of about puppy love and crushes and all that fun stuff.
Oh, it's one of my favorite singles by them for sure.
Yeah, a good way to start the album. And then we moved to Priscilla Millionaire. It's not John Sebastian on vocals, it's Steve Boone, and the bass player, but it's a John Sebastian song. And it's just, as I'm listening to the lyric, it seems to be about lovers who are mismatched, and Priscilla and Big House Taylor, whoever these people are. I don't know if you have any memories of that song. It's kind of a fun.
Well, it's kind of a send up, you know, and they did kind of things like that sometimes. So it fits in with their kind of persona.
And then we moved to Boredom, back another John Sebastian track, this gentle bouncing folk pop. And
I love Boredom.
It almost sounds to me like it could be a Grateful Dead song from Working Man's Dead, like some of the Dead stuff that was coming out in the early 70s. It would fit in on that.
Well, there's also kind of this country feel in it, you know, with the guitar and even the lyrics, you know, you're kind of out in the sticks somewhere and trying to look for something to kind of keep you more alert.
Yeah, I like the slide guitar on it.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we moved to, this is the one that jumped out for me on my first listen. Like, oh, I really like this song, 6 O'Clock.
I'm still nuts about it.
And how did that do in the charts?
It was top 20.
Top 20.
Okay. I remember it from Chicago radio where I grew up. You know, it was top 20 there. I bought it. I thought it was such a good song. I still do. I love it. You know,
I love the bite of the electric piano, like the dun, 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 dun. And the vocal reminded me, this is going to be a strange connection, but it reminds me a little bit of Gary Brooker from Procol Harum.
Interesting.
And because I was listening to a lot of Procol Harum at the time, still do. They're one of my favorite bands. And I guess they had, their big hit was Whiter Shade of Pale, which, when did that come out? 67?
Yeah, summer of 67.
So they were in the air, and maybe John Sebastian was picking up something from Gary's style. And it's about missing this girl from last night and waking up lonely at 6 a.m. I just love it. I mean, it sounded to me like very 60s, like, because I'm listening to this around 1980, maybe 81. That was my first exposure to the album, so it sounded old to me, but interesting. It's, if that makes sense, like, okay, this is a cool sounding song.
I think it's one of Sebastian's best lyrics.
And then we finished side one with Forever. This is a Steve Boone song. And when this was John Sebastian's last album, and when he left the group, Steve Boone picked up the pieces and was the main creative force behind the final album, which was the end of the line for them. But this is a heavily orchestrated instrumental. There's a lot of orchestra on this album, and but the rock band's kind of coming in and out of focus. I would call it a filler track, but it's pleasant sounding. And let's move to side two. We've got Younger Generation, Money, Old Folks, Only Pretty, What a Pity, Try a Little Bit, and Close Your Eyes. So Younger Generation, it's a generation gap song, isn't it? It's got this like psychologically tangled lyric and very much acoustic guitar based. Any thoughts on Younger Generation?
It's a fairly famous song. A lot of people recorded this one. It seems to take the position like, well, nowadays, if you're a parent, you let the kid do whatever the kid wants. Well, what if the kid wants to, quote, stick his finger in the fan? Do you just let him do that? You know, and at the end, there's almost like a druggy kind of reference, like, well, how much hands off do you really feel you can be to be a good parent without having a lot of damage and risk that could come to your child? What I don't know is if, you know, anyone in the band at that moment, if they had little children, you know, and did that influence Sebastian in the writing of the song?
Well, John Sebastian played this song at Woodstock. He made an unscheduled appearance at Woodstock, and according to Wikipedia, he dedicated it to an audience member whose wife or girlfriend had had a baby at the festival.
Oh, good timing.
Yeah, I like it. And then we go to Money, another John Sebastian song. This reminded me a little bit of a Donovan song. It has this kind of jug band feel, which goes back to the Lovin Spoonful's roots. And there's banjo being played by Jerry Yester here. I think it's, to me, it sounds like a throwaway song, but I did like the bass on it. But it may have been issued as a single.
It was issued as a single.
I don't know
but
why.
Again, it by comparison with how their singles had done before, I think it made like the top 50. So again, commercially, they were kind of fading away. And since the album came out like in January or maybe even late December '67, Money wasn't enough of a hit to kind of lift the album to do better on the charts. I love Money. I'm crazy about it. And I love all that plunky stuff going on that sounds like you're working in a bank at the end of it. And the last line, you know, and now a piece of paper from me won't seem half as flimsy. I mean, I think it's just kind of an interesting kind of take on what money is. And we put so much into it, and yet it defines so much of our lives, but, you know, it's flimsy.
We move on to Old Folks. This is the one that we played on the podcast. It's a Joe Butler song, and it was orchestrated by Jerry Yester. I find the chorus here really affecting. It's a sad, sad feeling to still be around. What does it feel like when you've lived too long, as it were? But can you talk about this, because this may be your favorite song on the album?
Well, lyrically, it probably is. It's all right. I'll have a boring story. I was driving to Acme, which is one of our food stores around here, and this song came on one of my homemade CDs. And I'm driving into Acme, and I started weeping. I mean, and you know, I think one of the reasons that the song is particularly interesting and nurturing is this was the time where the generations were all supposed to hate each other, you know, and I'm mad at you and you're mad at me and I'm breaking away from you and all of that. And yet here is, you know, even at the beginning, the singer is saying, you know, I always say hello to the old people. It isn't like you just kind of abandon them and let them be and I don't like you anymore and, you know, all this judgment. it was different on this song, and they're folks, they're real people that you could know.
I like also how it's in a way it's playing off the first track on side two, younger generations. Like this seems to be on their mind, like aging, generations, and all that. Like it's kind of interesting continuity going from track one to track three.
Yeah, and in the old folks, it's certainly a study in loneliness.
Yes.
You know, the old guy sitting there on the bench, and everyone is gone. You know,
Right.
there's him and a bench.
Then we move on to Only Pretty What a Pity. This sounds to me a little bit, I guess I would call it psychedelic pop or pop rock.
Yeah,
It reminds me a little bit of the Monkees. I don't know if you hear that in there, but it was written by Jerry Yester and Joe Butler, and they're on this album quite a bit. I would also call this album filler, but good album filler. I think the drums sound great on the remaster, by the way. Like I listened to it both on this my vinyl, which I have here, right? But then I also listened to it on Spotify. They have the remaster, and I think Ken, you probably have the remaster on your CD set with the bonus tracks and all.
yeah.
Um, but I thought the drum sounded really good on the remaster.
I love the song, but there's only one part I don't like. It breaks up into this kind of weird psychedelic whatever menage for like maybe 40 seconds, and then the song comes back again and finishes out. But it's like I wish they could have just excised that 140-second patch.
Do you think they
But
were
people were
trying?
doing that in the 60s. That's not so unusual, you know, that have these odd breaks that
Right.
move away from the normal part of the song, and then kind of it's stitched back together.
Do you think they were trying too hard though? Like they didn't execute it as well as some other bands
Well, I
did.
think I would have liked the song better without that one part.
Right.
Other people may disagree. If you really like that kind of style of psychedelia, you know, maybe they thought it was cool.
Then we go on to Try a Little Bit. They really got their money's worth from the orchestral sessions because the orchestras are all over these songs. And I just hear a moody, slow burning rock song here. It's not one of the highlights, but it's okay. And then
Well,
we
remember, you know, this is not that far from when Sergeant Pepper came out, and Orchestration. You know, I think if you had the label and the money to be able to do that, became part of what some people were doing.
I saw some comment on the internet. Someone said this was Lovin Spoonful's Sergeant Pepper. So that connection was made. I don't know if it's as good of an album as Sergeant Pepper, but maybe that's what they were shooting for.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it was the album they had after Sergeant Pepper came out, you know, and everyone always makes those compare. This is somebody's something else,
Yeah.
you know, and yet it really isn't. I mean, it's kind of its own thing, and it may have influences, but
Yeah. We finished side two with Close Your Eyes, co-written by John Sebastian and Jerry Yester. And it's another orchestrated ballad, a song that I didn't hear a chorus in this song, but it sounds again like Baroque pop to me.
yes, it does.
And a song about pushing through the darkness and depression. And it sounds kind of desperate to me. I like lyrically, this was an interesting song for me and an interesting way to finish the album.
Yeah, I think so too. I like the song a lot.
I do.
When you think of even Close Your Eyes, you know, immediately I'm kind of in the world of a dream. And it seems to end on a kind of, but not necessarily a happy dream. There's something kind of lurking in the background of that song.
Right. And that's the album. On the if you pick up the remaster, you're going to get 3 alternate version bonus tracks of the songs She Is Still a Mystery, Only Pretty What a Pity, and Try a Little Bit. And I recommend the remaster. I think they did a great job with it. So
I'm glad they did remaster it. You know, I'm glad it's come out as, you know, you'd hate, since I like the album so much, you know, you'd hate for it to just be nothing but a cutout for the rest of eternity.
Yes, and sadly, some of this old material has been lost. Like I've been listening to some artists, and then I'll research them, and I'll see the information like, oh, and by the way, all their stuff was lost in the universal fire.
Oh, that still breaks my heart. And also, I mean, I read Mark Lindsay of Paul Revere and the Raiders was talking about that, and how either he or someone involved with the group went into that place where all those old masters were stored, and they weren't even in order.
No.
They were just kind of, you had to look around to see if you could even find stuff. I mean, to me, that's just, even before the fire, it's just tragic how cavalierly those things were treated.
Yeah, it's an outrage for sure. So final comments on Everything Playing. Where do you fit this in to their album career, Ken? Like they had four, I guess it was four albums, and then that fifth one after John Sebastian left. How would you rank it?
Well, and then they had a couple of movie soundtrack albums, and there were a couple of greatest hits packages too. But of the regular releases that weren't movie tracks or weren't greatest hits, it's my favorite.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It's my favorite, and I have them all, you know, and I like them. But there's something about this one that really stood out for me.
What I like about it is its ambition. It's an ambitious record, and it seems like they're pulling from a lot of different sources and styles, and they're trying to make something bigger here. I don't think it always succeeds at that, but I like the effort. I really think it holds my interest from start to finish. And after I listened to this back when I bought it, I went out and bought one of the greatest hits comps. And then in later years, I got I think I have all the earlier albums. I don't have that final album, but I have all the other ones. But it's right up there.
Oh, it is for me. I do, you know, I mean, some of their earlier albums are much more jug bandy than what you see, you know, in this particular album. But what I'd like, if I could go back in time, is, you know, like to kind of have an eyeball on, well, the group was clearly not going to stay together, you know, and I don't think that's just even about that weird drug situation with Zolly and all that. You get the feeling that there's almost not elegiac exactly, but a sense of this is going to be it.
Right. So it's I don't know if like the cover art. I mean, like we should talk about the art too, because that's part of the album.
Did that cover?
Did he?
I think he did.
It looks like a children's album. So I don't think the album cover does justice to the music on it. And I don't know if this helps.
I thought it was a kind of pastiche of the cover of Sergeant Pepper.
There we go again with the Sergeant Pepper.
Well, I mean, you know, Pepper has all those people on it, and they're all kind of together, and
right.
But I hadn't made your connection about it. Looks like it could be made for children, and indeed, yeah, it does, with the weird animal-like figures and all, you know.
Yeah, and all the band members are in there too. Yeah, it's I think it's a nice period piece, and it just goes to show that just because an album flopped doesn't mean it's not good, right?
Oh, I count on flops.
And you can get all the Lovin Spoonful albums on those original album series sets. They're imports, and I think that's what you got, Ken. I don't have that myself, but I might get it down the line. If you want it on CD, that's the way to go.
Oh yeah, and it's all there. They are nice and together, you know, and so you get really a complete feel for what the group was.
So that's going to do it for our roundup of Everything Playing by the Lovin Spoonful. If you have comments and reactions and memories associated with the album, put them in the comments. We'd love to read them and respond to them. And if you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. And we'll see you next time on Song Tripping. Thanks, Ken. Oh,
all right.
one more thing I forgot to mention. I want to plug your new book. So Ken is a poet, and you just had a book come out on Meadowlark Press.
Yep.
And what's it called?
Oh, I'll hold it up here. Lilac and Sawdust.
Very nice. And it's out now. We watched your Zoom event the other day, the book launch event where you did a nice reading, and that's going to be available on YouTube. So as soon as it is, I'll put that link in the show description.
Oh, thank you.
And we'll also link to Ken's book page at Meadowlark Press, and we can check it out. Not that that has anything to do with the Lovin Spoonful, but it's news, and it happened right as we were making this video. So I wanted to give you a shout out for that and congratulate you for that.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.